So hello, everybody, and welcome to Enactus Canada's Winter Collaboration Summit, Day 2. Today we have Kanya and Sam from Notch Videos, who are going to give us a presentation all about making awesome videos. They're the experts, and I'm so excited for you all to hear and learn from them. So I won't take any more time. I'll just pass it right over to them. If anyone's watching and you don't like your view, the best way to view this type of presentation is by in the top right corner, clicking on view and toggling to side-by-side speaker. So that will just have slides and whoever is speaking pushed to the forefront. So Kanya and Sam, up to you.
Thank you, Catherine. Hey everyone, my name is Kanya. I'm here with my colleague Samantha, and we're both producers at Notch Video. So just a little intro on us here. So we've been around since 2012, and Notch Video is a unique production house. Our team consists of strategists, creatives, and production experts, and we pretty much do it all from end to end. So from strategy to creative to production to amplification, we're able to help our clients connect with today's consumer. So what makes us different? So we've built a community of content creators that we've carefully curated. So we're able to tap into our network of over 2,000 freelancers, meaning we can be super nimble and we're able to provide production solutions for any need. So what we're going to cover today in our presentation is the 5 questions. These are going to be 5 questions that you're going to keep in mind during the entire video making process. We're going to cover pre-production, so the planning, preparation stage. We're also going to touch on some COVID precautions because we want to make sure that no one is risking their life trying to make a video. So we just want to be very diligent in that respect. Then we're going to move on to production, where we're actually going to shoot your content. So we're going to go over some tips and strategies relating to production. And then we're going to talk about editing. This is where the magic happens, where you're going to puzzle, where you're going to put your puzzle pieces together. And then we're going to follow that all up with a Q&A right afterwards. So moving on to the 5 Qs. So I'm going to have Sam start this one off.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name's Sam, as Kanya had mentioned. So here we have the 5 Qs. So these are 5 questions that you should keep in mind starting in pre-production, going all the way into your post-production while you're making your video. So our first question being, why should I make a video? So a video, being a visual medium, is a really great form of communication to tell your story, using different visuals, pictures, different footage, to create a really meaningful connection with your audience and give them visuals that they can really relate to get your message across. And then what makes a great video? I know that was a question that a lot of you had asked in your initial questions that you had submitted. So really the thing that makes a great video is the story. It doesn't need to be super complex. It can be really, really simple. But as long as it's told well, it'll really just tie your video together and really create those connections with your audience. And then who likes video? Everyone likes video, really, as long as you're thinking about your audience. If you know who you're speaking to and you know what you want to resonate with your audience, you really want to get yourself into their shoes and really be able to understand what they're looking for. And then that will really create that connection and they'll like the video.
So how hard is it to make a video? It's not really that hard. I know it can be a little bit intimidating because you may feel like you need to be super technical, but you really don't. With a lot of preparation and planning in the pre-pro stage, then you can really set yourself up for success when it comes to shooting your content. And sometimes, things are not going to go as planned, and that's okay. Like, stuff happens. Like in the production world, like this happens all the time. So, you just need to like band together as a team and do some troubleshooting. So whether you need to like reschedule an interview or find an alternative way to shoot something, it's like try not to stress out, because it should be you should have a fun time making your video as well. So yeah, just I'll just say, like, just have fun and try not to stress out, and yeah, and just like really try to do as much planning as you can in the beginning before you go and start shooting your stuff. So when should you make a video? I mean, you can start now. Like, you can start right after this presentation. A lot of the stuff you have at home already. So we're going to cover all of that throughout our presentation. So yeah, nothing should be holding you back. Like, you can literally make a video at any time. Okay, so we're going to head into the pre-production phase. So I'll hand this back to Sam.
So pre-production. Pre-production is going to be all of your planning. So this is how you're going to set everything up, get yourselves organized as a team, really come together and create your plan for how you're going to shoot your video. This step is super important so that when you go into the step of actually filming, you know what you're doing, you have your story straight, you have an idea of what you want to shoot, and it just helps you be a lot more organized when you get into that production phase, so that you can focus on what you're doing and already know a little bit about how you're going to do it and how you're going to speak to it. So the first section is your story. So what is your story? Your story is going to be the thing that's going to create that connection between you and your audience. So your audience is going to see this, it's what they're going to identify with, and it's what is going to make you memorable. You could have, some crazy special effects and some really, really interesting visuals, but if you don't have a story and you don't have anything that your audience can identify with, it's going to make it a lot more forgettable and a lot easier and a lot harder for your audience to really understand. So while you're creating your story, you don't only want to talk about what you're doing, but you also want to talk about who you are and what your core values are. This is going to add that human element to your story and to your video that's really going to create that connection and really going to make what you're saying stick with the audience. And then also the perspective at which you're telling that story. So who's telling the story? Is it you as the CEO of your business? Is it potentially a user that's used your product before, that can speak to it and has more of an understanding about how it works and can give a testimonial? This can really change the perspective of your video and can really help ingrain those values into your audience's mind and really help them create that connection. So while writing your script, which I'll talk about next, it's really important to keep that in mind, who your audience is, who's telling the story, and how you really want them to engage and identify with your video. So moving on to your script. As I mentioned before you get into production, this is the step that's going to help you with your planning. So your script is really going to be the thing that breaks down your story, organizes all of your elements into one cohesive piece. And then it's also going to act as your roadmap when you go to start and shoot your video. So you can break down your script into 3 sections: your beginning, your middle, and your end. Very similar to writing anything really, whether it's a short story or an essay. You want to start with an introduction, set up your video, start with a hook that's really going to grab your audience and make them interested and engaged. And then really, start off strong as your introduction. Then you'll move into your middle section or your body, which is more of the meat of your piece. This is going to give you more detailed explanations on you as a team, your products, your business, whatever it is you're trying to convey within your video. And in this section, you can also add in any research, whether it's user research or any research you've done as a team, that can provide more information to your audience about who you are, about your initiatives, about your core values. And then your ending, where do you go from there? This would be the conclusion to your piece. So if you have a call to action, if you want your audience to, check out more information on your website, or if you wanted them to go and look at some more resources that you may have, or just telling them, what your next step is from here, what your company is going to be doing from here, really close that off with some next steps just to keep them engaged and keep them interested in who you are and really make them want to continue on with you in your story past the video. Next slide. So here we've written out a little script template for you. This is a template that we tend to use at Notch to kind of break up the audio and the visuals together. So when you're thinking about your script, you don't only want to think about what you're going to be saying. That's only half of it. You need to also have an idea of what your visuals will be to help really tie in your audio and your visuals together. So you would start with your production title. You would go into the date that it was written so that you can have, you know, different versions if you need to, along with which version it is. And then we've broken it down into the 2 columns of visuals and audio. So your visuals column, you'll look at any direction for your talent, any graphics that you might want to have displayed, or any text that may be displayed. And then in your audio, that's where you would put in your voiceovers, you would put in any sound effects, any music, really any audible cues that you'll have within your video. And then once you've written your script, then you can move on to your shot list. So your shot list is going to be your guide on how you will actually shoot your video once you get to the point of production. So this is going to be an extension of your script. So now that you know what you're going to say, this is really going to show how you're going to say it. So in your shot list, we have an example here on the screen, but you'll have your scene number, your shot number, the type of shot, and then what will be happening in that shot or any other direction notes that you wanted to have. So your shot number will go in a sequenced order of your video so that once you get into post-production, you know what order all of these different visuals will go in. Your type of shot will be, you know, is it going to be a really, really wide shot, a really wide landscape shot? Is it going to be a really close-up shot potentially on somebody's eyes while they're, or their mouth while they're speaking? You know, is it going to just be like a medium shot of somebody's body while they're speaking? Really, you know, getting into those minor details about how you're going to shoot all of these different pieces. And then what will be happening during that shot, who will be featured, what will be featured. The really important thing to keep in mind when you're putting together your shot list is the intention of the shot. So if you're doing a close-up shot, maybe on somebody's eyes while they're speaking, why are you choosing that shot versus maybe a medium shot while they're speaking? You know, is there something in their eyes that maybe conveys a bit more emotion that you really want your audience to understand and you want to resonate with your audience? Or could that same shot potentially be done on a medium shot, you know, where you really want to focus on what the speaker is saying? So as long as you have that intention when you're creating your shot list and you're understanding why you're making those shot choices, you can convey that in your shot list so that you know exactly where you're going once you get to production. And then storyboards. So storyboards are more of a visual representation of your video. It's going to let you graphically organize your video through stills, sketches, or drawings. And it's really going to show frame by frame what the video may look like once you get into the post-production stage. Now, is a storyboard necessary? Do you really need it? Not necessarily. Each person is going to be different when it comes to the creative process. If you feel while you're making your script or while you're making your shot list that, you know what, I need to see what this is going to look like, which is very common for people who have a better understanding of things, you know, seeing them versus just reading about them. A shot list or a storyboard may be a great idea for you and your team to come up with so that everybody can see very clearly what the plan is before you get into that stage of production. It gives you some really great visual direction for once you get to that point. But if your team is feeling really confident in your shot list and in your script, you don't necessarily need to do this step. But we always find it really helpful, especially when dealing with clients, to show them this is what you can expect when you see the full video. So I have an example up here of a storyboard where we broke down the piece frame by frame to give a really good explanation of exactly what those visuals will look like so that we could all be on the same page and move into the stage of production. And some COVID precautions. So The first thing I want to say is for this video, do not put your health at risk to make it. These are just some precautions that we use that are more industry standard right now, that we're finding as we're going through planning productions, but a lot of the production process can be done virtually. So even just in a meeting like this, you can have meetings with your team, you can go through your script, you can go through your shot lists, you know, do as much as you can virtually right now, just for the safety of everybody in your team and everybody outside of your team who may be around while you're shooting your videos. But if you are going to go through with a shoot together, these are just some precautions that we wanted to put in that we follow just to keep everybody as safe as possible. So the first thing you want to make sure is that everybody on set has the proper PPE and that you have sanitizer and sanitizing wipes or cleaner on hand so that if there's any surfaces you're touching, you can make sure that everything is nice and clean. If you have hair and makeup artists on set, they should always be wearing a mask, but also have gloves and a face shield, just because when you're doing somebody else's makeup, you're getting really up and close with them. You know, you're really up face to face. So you want to make sure that you're as protected as possible. Right now, the industry standard is to have the smallest crew possible. We typically try and keep it at about 5 people. And we make sure on set that we're using larger spaces so that everybody can be at a distance. So if you do get together to shoot this video, if you really feel that you must, just keep those distances, you know, maybe have somebody in the center with the camera, somebody on one side of the room, on the other side of the room. But again, that's only if you really feel like you need to get together. You don't necessarily need to, and we'll get into more detail about that once we get into production. And then I also put a source here for some location rentals. We do have 2 that we use quite frequently for locations, but a lot of locations, if you're looking into renting one, won't allow more than 5 to 8 people in a space, depending on how big it is. So just keep that in mind if you're looking for a location. You know, try and keep it to that 5 people to be as safe as possible if you really feel you need to. And we can go to the next slide, Kenya.
Okay. And then just to add to the COVID precautions that each province, you know, has their own restrictions. So just like check in and just ensure that you're following the restrictions. And again, we just want everyone to be as safe as possible. So we do want people to take this seriously. Okay, so we're gonna move on to production. Thanks, Sam, for covering pre-pro. Okay, so cameras. So like what can you actually use to shoot your video? Well, I mean, can you use your phone? Yes, 100%. You can use your smartphone. A lot of phones these days have excellent cameras. You know, there's a ton of filmmakers out there that shot entire films with just using a smartphone. You know, smartphones are portable. You know, everyone has one. You know, very accessible. And there's not much that you need to do in terms of adjusting the settings. If you have access to a DSLR camera, that can also produce some, you know, great video quality. I mean, there are more settings involved with a DSLR camera. You may need to, you know, review your manual or like look at some video tutorials, but there are a bit more options in terms of the lenses. So you can like switch them up, you know, get a macro lens if you want to do like extreme close-ups of like maybe a product, like get some product shots. Wide lenses if you want to do more like landscape and like cover a larger area within your frame. And it's also kind of nice to just have a camera that's dedicated to just shooting. So if you have access to that, then awesome. If not, then like you literally can use your smartphone. We've also linked a few video blogs you can check out. No Film School in Wistia. These guys have like lots of video tutorials that you can check out. Okay, so equipment. So I wish we had some to show you, but they're all like locked up in at the Notch studio and can't access them right this moment. But you can basically use, you know, stuff stuff at home. So in order for your shots to be steady, a tripod is, usually a good device to use. If you don't have a tripod, then literally just a stack of books can work well. Some of the tripods, some of the brands out there like Joby, there's like a Gorilla Pod. So it's like these little legs that are easily bendable. Manfrotto, they also have tripods that you can easily put your phone on. A lot of these range probably from around like 50 to 100 bucks. And then you also want to make sure that the camera is eye level. So with that, as I mentioned, a tripod or a stack of books. And then to prop your camera, you can use like a pop socket, or you can also just use, other items in your house to hold the phone steady. And then with DSLR cameras, they can typically sit on a flat surface. But yeah, if you can get access to a tripod, then that would be really helpful for you. For tracking shots, you can get a little gadget called a stabilizer. This can help with getting fluid movement and to avoid the camera being shaky. Digi, Pocket, or Osmo, these are the stabilizers are a little bit more on the expensive side. They can be a few $100s. But I mean, if you're doing tracking shots where you're going to need movement, then it could be a good investment. So a note is when you're using your smartphone is that you want to have it landscape, because if you shoot this way, which you're probably most used to, when you go to edit, you're going to see vertical lines, or when you see it on a monitor, you're going to see black bars. And typically videos are 16:9 landscape, so you just want to ensure that you have your phone flipped to landscape. And then also, if you're using your phone, you want to turn off your notifications, so just set it to airplane mode. Sound. So ensure the space that you're shooting in is quiet. If you're outside, check for wind, because like that's going to be all picked up. So just make sure that you can be in a space that's quiet or there's no wind. For getting better sound quality, you can look into getting an external microphone. So this can attach to your phone. There's like adapters, and there's like a phone jack that you can put into your phone, and then the microphone can also go into the jack. And an example of that is using a lavalier mic or a lapel mic, and that can be clipped onto your subject. So, if you have speaking bits, then, that can typically be a good solution for, achieving good quality audio. And then, yeah, you just want to be close to the mic. So if you're self-shooting on a smartphone, then, use earbuds so you can get clear audio, because there's built-in mics in the earbuds. So if you want to capture additional sounds, so room tone or sound effects, then there are some apps that you can use to record just sound. We've linked some right there. Some of them, your phones typically do come with a pre-installed app, like on Apple, there's voice memos, but you can also check out Rev or Easy Voice Recorder. Okay, so lighting, how to light your scene. So the best lighting and free is using natural light, from your window. And you want to position your subject so that the light source, so the window, is in front of you, or at least no more than a 45-degree angle, because if you have the window behind you, then it's going to cast a shadow, and then your subject is going to be completely dark. So just make sure that the light source is in front. If you have access to lights, which might be really tough because typically you would be renting, lights, but I don't know, maybe you know someone or you have lights, then there's the easy, there's a 3-point lighting setup that you could try out, where it involves a key light, a fill light, and a backlight. So the key light will be your primary source of light, and it will be the brightest of the three. And then you have your fill light, which will help eliminate shadows caused by the key light. And then the backlight, which is going to separate your subject from the background and will help create depth as well. So we have a little diagram there. Wardrobe and background considerations. So what to wear on camera. So you just want to be mindful about the clothing and what you're wearing in front of camera. You want to just stick to like solid neutral colors. Try not to wear like stripes or like heavy patterns because this can be like distracting. Also, refrain from wearing brand logos. And then ensure that like you're not wearing the same color as the background. So like I'm wearing black, but like if I had a black background, I wouldn't be wearing black because I would be totally blending into the background. So just be mindful of those items. And then in terms of jewelry, just keep it really simple because sometimes if you have like dangly earrings or very flashy jewelry, that can also be distracting. And your background. So in terms of your background, just, have it tidy and presentable as possible. Just something plain is always your best bet, and avoid having reflective surfaces like mirrors, picture frames in windows, as that could be reflective. Camera settings. So this was just something I wanted to quickly touch on because if you were going to be using your smartphone in your video, so in the video mode, you'll notice that you'll have these options for frame rate and HD or 4K. So choosing a frame rate. So the frame rate is the amount of individual frames that your camera captures per second. So 24 frames is the standard for TV and film, and it kind of provides that like nice cinematic feel. So it's like those high-end TV shows like that you see on HBO. 30 frames is what you would typically see in news, TV, live TV, and sports. This is less cinematic, but it gives you more of that. It feels more real. And then 60 frames is when you would record this in 60 frames, and then you would use this to play back in slow motion. HD versus 4K. So these days HD is, it's more than enough. But if you wanted higher quality video, then you can up it up to 4K, which gives you more flexibility in editing. So you're able to like crop your image and you don't have to worry too much about losing too much of the resolution or the quality. It does take more storage space when you're shooting on 4K, and it does take longer to process when you're in the post stage and when you're editing your video. And then again, just like on the phone, you're able to just quickly tap on that and change those settings. Okay, how to set up your shot. So the rule of thirds, this is to help with like composition. And it's really helpful to imagine like the grid. So it's like 2 lines across and then 2 lines down. And you want to position so that the point of interest are along the lines or where the points intersect. So in this particular example here, I mean, her head's a little bit tilted, but you can see that her eyes are along the lines, and then also her body is pretty much within the grid, like in the second column. So I think some of the cameras do have the option to show the grid, but if not, it's something you can just do in your mind, and that will help you frame your shot. And then it just, allows a little bit of like more balance, and it enables the viewer to interact with it more naturally. If you're going to be recording yourself speaking, then just make sure you're at eye level and that you're looking at the camera and not at yourself on the screen. So one little tip is like placing a piece of tape or something near the lens, so it reminds you to keep looking at that piece of tape, so you have like a focal point. Okay, so we're going to move on to post-production now. So I'll hand this back to Sam.
Thank you. So now you've shot your video, you have all of these pieces. Now it's time to put them together. So the best way to think about editing your video is like a puzzle. So you have all these pieces in front of you. Maybe you did, 3 takes of a scene, and then you have to decide, okay, which one is the best for the purpose that I need it for, and then where do I plug it in when it comes to my video? So this is a time that you could refer back to your shot list or to your script, just so that you can remember exactly what your plan was going into your video and use that as your guideline while you're editing. Will it always be the same as your original script? Not always. You may have taken, a shot that you weren't expecting, that when you were doing your production, you're like, you know what, let's give this a try, see how it works. And it may be the best shot of your entire video. Don't feel like you have to follow your script exactly as you wrote it. If there are some changes in editing, that's the beauty of post-production, is that you're going to come out of this with the video that you feel is best. So just use that as a guideline, but this is the section where you're really going to be able to put your video together, take all of your best pieces to really create that video that you want and to convey the message that you really want to get across. You can go to the next slide, Kenya. So here we have a few suggested editing programs. I'll go through all of them pretty quickly. We do have all of these linked. So at the end of the presentation, you'll be receiving this deck. So you can click through these directly and go to each of these different editing platforms. But the first one that we wanted to suggest is a platform called Video Leap. So Video Leap is a platform that's made for really quick and easy editing on your phone or on a tablet. There's a version for both iOS and Android. And it comes equipped with everything that you're going to need during the editing process. So it will have your timeline. So when you open up your video platform for editing, you'll be able to upload all of your video content into the program. And with Video Leap, you can basically drag and drop that into your timeline. So it'll be blank when you open it. If you have a video that you wanted to, you could upload it, drag it right into your timeline, and it will show up there. And in the editing program at the base, it will give you all of your time codes and timeline and how long it is. So if you say took a piece and dragged it in that was 2 minutes, it will give you that information, and then you can cut it down to where you need it to be. So if you needed it to be 30 seconds, you can make those cuts. Video Leap also has color correction, which will help you make your colors a lot more vibrant. It'll take that raw footage that you captured and really be able to make it your own. You can do cutting, you can crop them, you can do some blurring. And then Video Leap also has built-in visual effects. So if while you're speaking, if you wanted to have somebody's name pop up on the bottom, which would be called your lower third, you can add that in as well. And they have pre-built in settings that you can go and do that along with text overlay. And this just makes it really easy and really accessible. And it is a free app to use. So you can download that either on Google Play or on iOS. The next one that we would suggest would be iMovie. This one is specifically for Apple users, but it is very user-friendly and very easy if you don't have a lot of experience with editing. It's very similar to Video Leap, as I mentioned. You can just drag and drop your content right into your timeline. But they also have dozens of titles, special effects, filters, and even some soundtracks that you can use built into the program that you can plug into your video as you go. Adobe Premiere Pro, this one is more on the advanced side of things. If you are familiar with Adobe at all, it is a host of different platforms, from video editing to audio editing to special effects to photo editing. But that all sync together on your Adobe Creative Cloud if you have one. that allows for you to move things around pretty seamlessly. While Adobe doesn't have a lot of the same things built in, they do have some titles and lower thirds, things like that, that you can plug in. But you can also download some templates externally that you can bring into Adobe to help make that editing process a little bit easier. Now, Adobe is a paid platform, so you can use, they actually do have a free trial that you could use, which I believe is either 7 or 14 days. So if that's the timeline that you're looking to edit and you really want to try out Premiere Pro, I highly suggest using that free trial to see if you like it. But then you can also find tons of really simple tutorials on how to use a program like Adobe on YouTube. I mean, YouTube, even for professionals, is like a really great resource if you're struggling, you really want to add in a specific effect, but you're not sure how. I mean, I've always gone to YouTube to try and find the best way to add in something specific that I'm looking for, because there's always somebody out there who's tried it, figured it out, and wants to share that knowledge. So definitely recommend, if you're struggling with any of these programs, check out any tutorials that you can find. But then I've also linked a few resources here that you can use. So these are 3 areas that do have templates or that offer templates that you can use to upload into either specifically Adobe or into either Video Leap or iMovie if you're looking to create something a bit more custom for yourself. So Motion Array and Envato Elements, these are 2 that have really specific to Adobe Premiere Pro templates. These can be anything from, if you're looking for a very specific lower third that you wanted to add in, or if you wanted to find a really specific transition between your shots, you can take a look at both of Motion Array and Envato Elements to find those. Motion Array does have a lot of free options, and we'll touch a bit more as we get into stock later on Motion Array, because they have a whole host of, music, they have templates, they have footage, they have images, and a lot of them are free. And then Envato Elements does require a subscription, but once you have that subscription, you have unlimited downloads of what you get. So if you wanted to take 10 different templates from there, if you have the subscription, you can download as many as you want. You can even try out a couple, and if you decide you don't like them, you don't have to worry about, I've already paid for it. If you have that subscription, you can download and try as you please. The third template that I've linked here is Canva. So Canva isn't going to give you templates for your full video, but they do offer really easy to use intros and outros. Or even if you're looking to add like title slides in between different pieces of footage, Canva is a really easy design tool that you can use, and just kind of like plug in what you need to into their pre-built templates, export them, and then drag and drop them into your video timeline. So you can add in, if you have specific brand colors that you use, or you have specific brand fonts that you use, you can just plug those right into these Canva templates and then add that into your video from there. Go to the next slide.
Cool.
And I'll pass that back to Kenya.
Okay, so audio and stock music. So when editing your video, you want to keep the audio consistent with the visuals. So, this is in regards to voiceover and music. Voiceover should be in sync with the speaker's mouth, and you want it to look as natural as possible, but you also need it to be audible. When you're adding your music, you just want to make sure that you adjust it appropriately. So if someone's speaking, then you want to have the music, a little bit on the lower side so that you can hear the speaker. But if there's no voiceover and you really need the music to sort of help push your message across, then that's when you can raise the music level. So you just need to be mindful of speaking parts and music. So stock music and sound effects. So there's a ton of stock music sites out there. We've listed a bunch here for you. Some are free and some are paid. So we have like Free Music Archive, that's a free one. Epidemic Sound, there's a paid subscription for unlimited use, but there's a 30-day free trial. Audionautics, that's a free one. Motion Array, as Sam had mentioned, this one kind of contains everything like music and images. This one requires a subscription, but has a free subscription option with some audio clips being free to use. Artists, this one requires subscription, this requires a subscription, but for the music, yeah, and it's about $16 a month for unlimited downloads and use. So we at Notch Video, we actually use Artists quite a bit. And then another one that we use is Audio Jungle, and this is a paid platform, but you can also pay per song, not subscription based. And then most of these sites, you know, you're allowed to download with the watermark, so you can always like try it out before actually purchasing the track. Okay, so stock images. So if you need to incorporate other images or visuals into your story, then stock stills or footage is your best bet. And there's a lot of stock options out there. Like when would you need to add in stock? Well, if you wanted to convey something specifically that you weren't able to capture during your shoot, then this is when you can introduce stock footage. Stills are a little bit more easier to find and are, you know, are free. And the stock footage, those ones are a little bit more difficult to come by, but like we had mentioned, a lot of them come with watermarks, so you can try it out and test it before actually committing to buying them. And then some of our favorite ones here are Unsplash. So this one's just stills, but they have like lots of stunning imagery on the site, and they have a really cool feature where you can like upload an image and then it will pull up similar images to what you uploaded. Pexels, this one is stills and footage. This one's free, and they've also got lots of nice photography or imagery similar to Unsplash's, similar to the style on Unsplash. It's not the largest database to pull from, but it's very nicely curated. Pixabay, this is also a free one. This one has a large database, but a lot of it is kind of hit and miss, but it is free. And then again, Motion Array. This one is a required subscription, but there's a lot more options. And same with Shutterstock and iStock. These are paid subscriptions, or you can get credit packs. But with these sites, like there's like a ton of options, like millions. So yeah, so those are some of the ones that we like to use.
And then one thing to note with stock imagery, especially right now, if you're going to use it, with, you know, everybody being in the same situation with COVID, if you are going to use any footage that has people, you know, without masks or that are really close together, just make sure that you kind of have a disclaimer there that it was either shot pre-COVID or that it is like an older image, just to kind of protect yourself too, so that people aren't seeing it and thinking like, oh, they went out and broke the rules, right? You want to just keep yourselves as safe as possible and just make sure that your audience has an understanding of that too.
Yes, very good points. All right, so that pretty much wraps up our presentation, taking you through the production phase, the production and post-production phase. I know we have some questions that came through the chat, so we're going to take this time now to answer some questions. So I'll just stop this here. Okay, so let's see. Okay. Oh, well, a lot of them were hellos. Hello, everyone. Okay, So someone is wondering, would fill light be a ring light? So wondering if you can use a ring light as sort of a fill light. Yeah, you can. I would say that you'd be able to use a ring light as fill light. So let's say you are, you're using your window as well, then that could be sort of your key light. And then you would have your ring light to the side. So, I mean, you don't necessarily need to have the 3 lights. I think you could honestly use the two as your lighting source. You may have to play around a little bit to just make sure that you're not getting any shadows. But I think that you can definitely use the ring as a fill. It could also be your key too, if that's your only light source. So.
Yeah, it also depends on where you place it, right? Because if you have your ring light, the farther back that you place it, the more dispersed your light is going to look. But if you needed something really close up to be really bright, bring it a bit closer and it'll be closer to your face, therefore brightening it up because your face is the closest thing it can bounce off of. So like Kania said, just like play around with it and use, lamps or, like the ring light, things you have around in your house already to try and make that setup. Because really any light source can be used for that 3 lighting setup.
Okay. Okay, someone's asking about, someone's heard DaVinci Resolve is a good video editing program as well. What is her take on that? I mean, I personally have not used the program. I have heard good things. Sam, I don't know if you've had an experience working with editors that have used DaVinci.
Yeah, I mean, DaVinci is also a bit, much like Premiere Pro, is still a bit more of an advanced software. So we tried to give you guys some software options that would be a bit more beginner or a bit more all-in-one. But if you're comfortable using DaVinci, if that's something that you're familiar with or that you want to explore, by all means, feel free to use it. It's a great program to use. We just wanted to give you guys some of our most like all-encompassing options, but yeah, still a great option.
Oh, yeah, it's basically a lot of students like, are you guys like familiar with like tripods and stuff like that? Because like I do have examples to show around. I have stuff in my room basically, if they really want to look at them.
Anything? Do you think we can wait to
Yeah.
the end and whoever
Yeah,
else
okay.
can hang out after the call?
Yeah, okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I wish we had some examples, and we do at our studio, but it's locked up and we're unable to go to the office. So, okay. I think there was a question that was asked when registering for this session, and someone asked about integrating PowerPoint into your video. So with that, we suggest to export your PowerPoint as like as a JPEG or as a PDF and incorporating that into your video. Because I think I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think you can actually like bring in an actual PowerPoint into a video timeline. So it's probably best to export it as like an image.
Yeah, you can't, I know from experience from trying, you can't bring your PowerPoint into your video straight ahead, but like Kenya said, if you export it, make sure you export it as JPEGs and not into a PDF necessarily, because your PDF will be one long document, where if you export it into JPEGs, each slide will be individual, and that will just make it easier to drag each image where you need it to go. Alternately, if you wanted to record, like screen record your presentation, or put it on present mode and record it. If you wanted to have it looping as a video, you can do that as well, and then export that video and bring it into your editing platform.
Someone is asking, at the end of the video, do we need to give credit to these websites? So I guess like if you're getting stock images, so if you're getting images or music from the sites where it's free, then typically you don't need to. I mean, you can always, as a courtesy, it's always nice to add it in the credits, but you don't necessarily need to. And same with the paid ones. You don't need to really give credit to those because you've paid for those actual, clips or images or songs. So that's all in the license and that's all covered. So you don't necessarily need to give credit.
There's one here about pulling images or pulling news clips from YouTube, and the legality of it. So pulling from YouTube can be a bit tricky, like you mentioned in the question, especially because of the legality of it. Some YouTube clips that you may be able to find will have actually in the description box if you are able to use them. I've seen creators put up videos that are saying like, hey, go ahead and feel free to use this if you want to. Otherwise, if it's something like a news source, it may get a little bit sticky depending on their, on their usage rights. But if it's something that maybe you're in the news video, right? Or if you have a contact that maybe you were in an interview and you wanted to pull that from YouTube and use it. I mean, if your likeness is in it, you may be able to use it, but it's always worth checking with somebody if you can when it comes to pulling videos from another source online, just to cover yourself, right? Unless it explicitly says, like, please feel free to use this, always try and check with somebody where you can before you start pulling other people's content to use in your own.
Okay. What if the Google logo is in the video in terms of the concept and purpose, i.e. animated clip of a Google search? Okay, so if you wanted to use, I guess, if you wanted to shoot someone, using on their computer doing a Google search, like wondering if that's okay to use the Google logo. I mean, I guess it all really depends. It depends on the purpose of your video. And for you guys, I mean, the videos that you're going to be creating are to showcase your, initiative, and not necessarily meant to, it's not like an ad, right? So, I mean, it's again, going back to the news clip stuff and the legality, it's a little bit tricky. And I don't know if we're in the position to say that, it's okay to do that. Because if it's something that's being shown internally and not towards the public, I feel like that would be okay. But if it's something that would be shown publicly, then that's where you're kind of like, I mean, it might be tough, but, you might be able to, crop it so you don't really see the Google logo, and then you kind of just see the field bar or the search bar. But I think that when it comes to like showcasing like actual logos, like it's kind of, it's a little bit of a tricky situation. And yeah, some people commented on how PowerPoint can actually be converted as a video file. So there you go.
And then somebody mentioned Adobe Spark.
Yeah.
Adobe Spark is great. I would highly recommend using it. The really nice thing about Adobe Spark, in my experience, is that you can upload all of your kind of brand elements into Adobe Spark, so that when you go and make your video, that can just easily be plugged in. Like I mentioned in the post-production stage when I talked about Premiere Pro, the beauty of Adobe is that all of their platforms, they link together, right? So if you do something on Adobe Spark and you want to import it into Premiere, or if you do something in Photoshop and you want to import it into another platform like Illustrator to Photoshop, it's all very seamless in the way it's all integrated together. So Adobe Spark, you can make pretty simple videos in that. You can put in some transitions in Adobe Spark, but to edit your entire video, I wouldn't recommend doing it just because it doesn't have as many features as something like a Premiere Pro would do. Adobe Spark is mostly meant for like quick, more social videos, something a bit shorter. You know, like I said, something with maybe like one simple transition. But if you wanted to edit your full video in a more professional looking capacity, I would go with something like a Premiere Pro. But Spark is really good to do like really branded elements, shorter pieces, things like that.
Cool. Okay. Okay, so when we have a question that just came through, when we are finished with production and then we realize that the audio is full of unwanted noise, wind, etc., what do we do? Is it better to use the original sound and try to eliminate the unwanted noise, or re-record audio with many different cheap microphone? Okay, so I guess it really depends on if there was voice, like if you had captured voiceover and then there was unwanted sound, then yeah, that might be a little bit tricky to remove, but you could you know, go back and re-record and do like a voiceover. It would be tricky if it was on camera to reduce those noises, because then you would be dealing with the visuals as well. So if it was just voiceover, then yeah, you could go back and re-record. Yeah. Yeah, I would say like if it was just voiceover, then yeah, definitely go back and re-record it. But if it was a person talking, I mean, if you're able to re-record that with the picture as well visually, then you know, you can do that as well. But if you're not able to, then I don't know, I guess there could be some, like in the editing software, I'm not sure if they have capabilities to help reduce some of the unwanted noise. But that's sort of like when you start getting to like sound design and it gets a little bit more advanced. So in that case, it's like if you're able to re-record, then we would probably suggest doing that.
And it's kind of like, think about it, you know, like if you're cooking, right? You want to try as you go. While you're in production, you can, you know, do a take, stop, watch it, listen to it. And you'll be able to tell, you know, if you're listening right after you shot it, like, oh, you know what, I heard a bird in the background. Let's try it again, right? So while you're shooting, it's really important to like keep an eye on what you're doing during that process and listen to it and watch it as you go so that you can really make sure you get what you want. So that when you get to that editing phase, you're not like, oh man, there's all this wind in the background I didn't notice, right? Get as many takes as you can, listen to it while you go, watch it while you're going. It may take a little bit longer, but it will give you the best product in the end.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point, is definitely take a look at your takes, so that, you know, if you do find there's some unwanted noise or something disruptive, then you can go back and shoot it again. And you can never have too many takes. So you always want to have options. Your editor may not like it, but it's better to have, you know, better options to play around with in the editing room.
I think I'm going to cut off the Q&A now because it's 4 o'clock. Thank you all so much for coming. Before you leave, I actually have a giveaway. Samsung gave us a Galaxy 10 Pro phone to give to one of you today. So I put all of your names into a generator. And I picked a random name, and the person who won was Sandra from Georgetown College. So Sandra, I'll email you and you'll get that phone in the mail. So thanks to Samsung for pulling that together. Welcome. But of course, a huge thank you to Kenya and Sam from Notch. This training was super, super valuable. And I hope that all of you learned something today to help make your videos for regionals and nationals. I'm certainly feeling excited to see all of the great videos after you've all heard so many great tips and tricks. And I hope you have a really great day. This video will be sent to you at the end of the week, along with the slides.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for all the tips and advice.
No problem.